Chosen one, welcome, chosen ones. Let me tell you something they don't want you to know. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble into this room, into this moment. You were called here because you are different. You carry something in you that makes people uncomfortable. Something they can't quite name, but they feel it when you walk in. You're not weak. You're not naive. You're not someone they can just write off. You are the storm they pray never comes. And deep down, they already know it. You've been through things that would have broken other people in half. And yet, here you stand. Quiet, maybe. Tired, probably. But defeated? Never. Because the truth is this. The ones who've been underestimated the longest, who've stayed silent while others ran their mouths, who've been dismissed, disrespected, and doubted. Those are the ones who flip the whole script when no one's looking. You are not invisible. You are intentional. Every scar on you is proof you survived battles they never even knew you were fighting. And now it's time for them to feel what it's like when the tables don't just turn. They break clean in half under the weight of your comeback. So buckle up. You're not just walking into your power tonight. You're owning it. And trust me, the universe has been waiting for this exact moment for you to remember exactly who you are. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. There is no error in their conduct. What unfolds is deliberate, rehearsed like a ritual. No misstep, no moment of confusion on their part. They measure each move as though tracing a pattern on glass. Every dismissive glance, every silence, every slight is placed with care. Not born from ignorance, but precision. They chart your reactions, noting where you flinch and where you endure, pressing harder where they find resistance. It is not a storm by accident, but a design of quiet destruction. Layer by layer, they strip at your resolve, not out of concern, not because they lack awareness, but because they've invested in seeing you fall. That is what cuts deepest, the coldness of it all. This is not clumsiness of the heart. It is an orchestrated campaign. They craft their words to seem harmless, and in public they shine with practiced charm, while in private, they unfasten the bolts that hold your spirit upright. They are meticulous in erasing the evidence, scattering doubts among others so that you seem unsteady and they appear untarnished. It is a performance meant to leave you unraveling silently while they collect applause. What rattles them now is not remorse, but the realization that their disguise is cracking, and the truth begins to seep through. None of this was random. It was a calculated assault, unseen yet precise. But what they never predicted was that you would rise again, wiser, sharper, unwilling to be quiet any longer. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. They are not indifferent to your suffering. They savor it. Your struggles serve as their private spectacle, a quiet amusement they return to again and again. When you stumble, they turn away just enough to hide the satisfaction in their eyes. They find humor in your confusion, relish the sight of you straining to stay composed. Breaking you isn't enough. They want to witness every fragment as it falls. The more you gather yourself, the more they tamper with the ground beneath your feet, eager to prolong your collapse into something they can marvel at. To them, your life is a stage, and they attend every scene, not for healing, but for the thrill of your pain. They poke at old wounds, stir the ash of forgotten fires, then stand back pretending innocence when the sparks fly. They seek cracks in your armor to convince themselves they can undo even the strongest of souls. But what unsettles them now is that you refuse to give them the ending they rehearsed. You do not break, you change. And now, The ones who once feasted on your anguish retreat into corners, hoping no one discovers the part they played. The balance has shifted, and the spotlight no longer flatters them. One by one, their schemes unravel under scrutiny, and the silence they forced upon you becomes the silence that haunts them. What they never imagined was that you would transform their cruelty into your proof. Proof that you could withstand, endure, and emerge while they are left to watch in quiet disbelief, no longer laughing. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. They do not simply inflict harm. They observe as though your anguish is some rare phenomenon to catalogue. Each reaction is weighed, each sigh and silence dissected, as though part of some strange ritual of control. They provoke intentionally, awaken buried scars, just to measure how much you endure before fracturing. This has nothing to do with healing, nothing to do with confusion. Everything is intentional. Each move is another step deeper into their quiet experiment, not out of empathy, but out of hunger for dominance. They arrange their cruelty like pieces on a board, disguising it as affection one moment and disdain the next, shifting the ground beneath you without warning. This is no accident. It is a game designed to keep you disoriented, a shifting maze where the exit is always moved just out of reach. They package manipulation in ribbons of false care and deliver doubt wrapped in feigned kindness, all the while recording your unraveling like it proves something about them. To them, you are not human, but a puzzle to dismantle, an enigma they try to bend into something they can predict. But what they never foresee is how their own hands betray them. With every act of harm, they leave invisible footprints. Every whispered lie, every calculated silence leaves a mark that grows impossible to ignore. What they once hid in shadows is now plain for all to see. Their story cracks, their perfect image falters, and the evidence of their malice clings to them louder than your pain ever did. They believed you were merely a vessel for their games, yet it is their faces that are etched with guilt while you stand unbroken. What they sought to erase becomes the proof of what they are, and your refusal to collapse exposes them to the light they cannot bear. They withhold mercy, not by mistake, but by design. Convinced you lack the means to resist, they assess you and decide you are alone, defenseless, and easily subdued, and that belief fuels their arrogance. They overstep with impunity because they assume no one will stop them. No one will intervene. No one will hold them accountable. Their cruelty grows not from ignorance, but from the certainty that you have no voice loud enough to challenge them. Their greatest miscalculation is not in their violence, but in what they fail to see in you. They mistake your stillness for surrender, your quiet for defeat, your composure for emptiness. They cannot comprehend that strength does not always arrive in noise or fury, but often takes root in silence, gathering its power beneath the surface. They misunderstand entirely, thinking you are fragile, while all along you are building something they cannot touch. Their choice to deny you compassion unmasks their own fear. Fear of what you might become if unbroken. Their attacks are nothing more than admissions of their insecurity, but they are too blinded to see it. They imagine they have won, yet with each cruelty, they reveal the fault lines in themselves and show you where they are weakest. They cling to their illusion of control, unaware you are playing an entirely different game, one they cannot fathom. The mercy they refuse becomes the judgment that returns to them, reflected back sharper than they imagined. They sought to silence and diminish, but instead awaken the force they least expected, one that rises, reshapes, and redefines what strength truly looks like, leaving them scrambling to understand how they misread you so completely. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. They do not merely encounter you by chance. You become the silent witness to everything they pretend does not exist within themselves. All their regrets, envy, doubt, and hidden failures gather in the spaces between you, and your presence becomes the spark that illuminates what they bury. Instead of reaching into themselves to confront what festers, they reach outward and strike at you instead. To them, you are more than a person. You become a surface where their concealed truths appear, and some would rather shatter what reflects them than look too closely. Rather than admitting to their own fractures, they fling those broken pieces at you, blaming you for the discomfort they cannot name. They are not responding to your essence, but to the uneasy realization of who they fear becoming. Your steadiness unsettles them, your clarity interrupts their illusions, and your honesty rattles the neat stories they tell themselves. You stand in quiet contrast to everything they deny, and so they choose to dismantle you instead of mending themselves. The intention is not simply to wound you, it is to silence the reminder you carry of the work they refuse to do. None of this is truly about you, though it feels that way. It is a clumsy attempt to run from the shadows they can never quite escape. Destroying what shows them the truth feels safer than sitting with it. But here is what they fail to grasp. No matter how many times they try to strike it down, the truth remains, and so do you. Their struggle is not just with you, but with the reflection they cannot erase. Even as they retreat, that reflection waits, insisting they reckon with what they once thought they could ignore. Kindness does not make you fragile. It marks you as powerful. Yet they twist that strength, wielding it like a blade against you. They mistake your openness as a path to infiltrate your trust and twist your patience into permission. Each time you extend forgiveness, they wrongly take it as an invitation to push further, to test how far they can trespass. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Quiet is not surrender. It is the quiet room they use to sharpen their games, spreading distortions and building illusions unchecked. They count on your restraint, banking on your heart to absorb their harm without striking back. They imagine your willingness to endure is infinite, your resolve incapable of snapping. But what they cannot see is that your kindness is no passive gift. It is deliberate and it is resilient. You choose grace because it is heavier than hate, not because you have no choice. You remain calm because you know that silence can carry more weight than shouting ever could. In time, their schemes crumble under the very light they sought to dim. The patience they exploited becomes the evidence of their cruelty. The grace they mocked reveals the smallness of their intent. What they fail to break becomes a testament, proving that kindness is not a crack in your armor, but the steel beneath it. In their haste to use your heart against you, they expose their own emptiness. The very thing they thought would undo you becomes the mirror that undoes them. Your quiet strength stands unshaken, while their mask slips in full view. The story they wanted to write collapses into the truth they can no longer deny. They appoint themselves as the ultimate authority over your life, handing out punishment as though the outcome was already carved in stone. They do not pause to hear your voice, to weigh your truth, or to question their own assumptions. They are not interested in facts or fairness, only in preserving the story they have chosen to believe. They claim the power to condemn quietly, imagining no one will ever challenge them. But what they cannot fathom, what their pride refuses to consider, is that the arena where real justice lives is far beyond their reach. Outside their small circle of whispered verdicts and private accusations, a greater reckoning unfolds. This space does not depend on gossip or alliances. It answers only to what is true, seeing clearly through every facade, immune to manipulation. No corner is dark enough to conceal what has been done. Every slight they deliver in secret becomes a visible mark. Every scheme they devise is laid bare in the open. The judgment they thought belonged only to them turns back on them with a weight they cannot carry. The authority they clung to so tightly was never theirs to begin with. The power lies not in false declarations, but in the quiet certainty of truth itself, and in the inevitable correction that follows. They convince themselves they can act with impunity, but nothing escapes the gaze of what watches beyond them. What they hoped to silence now speaks louder. What they thought was over becomes their own unraveling. The greater tribunal has spoken, and no escape remains. Their harm does not strike like sudden lightning. It follows a steady rhythm, repeating itself with intent. This is no fleeting spark of anger, no spontaneous mistake. It is a design that unfolds gradually, carving away at you piece by piece. Each cold glance, each calculated omission, each word sharpened to cut, all are parts of a deliberate pattern meant to weaken your resolve and unmake your sense of self. This is not ordinary conflict, not simple disagreement. It is a crafted assault on your mind, your confidence, your reality, an ongoing siege disguised as care. They weave moments of calm between waves of cruelty to keep you unsteady, unsure of what is real and what is not. It is never random, it is rehearsed. They engineer the chaos so subtly that you begin to doubt even your own memory of events. The aim is to obscure the truth until you no longer trust yourself enough to resist. But what they fail to account for is the resilience their ritual awakens in you. Over time, you begin to recognize the signals, to anticipate the next move, to build quiet defenses they cannot see. The very pattern meant to dismantle you becomes the map that leads you out of it. What was once a cycle of harm becomes a proving ground for your endurance. Each cruel repetition only sharpens your perception and strengthens your will. Their tactics, though meant to hollow you out, instead reveal a strength they never expected you to possess. You walk away knowing what they never could, that no ritual of destruction can erase a spirit that refuses to submit. What you witness in their trembling hands and restless eyes is not remorse, but dread. There is no regret swirling behind their words, only the sharp sting of panic at what awaits them. The calm they wear begins to crumble because they sense the edge drawing closer. The webs they've spun, the wounds they've inflicted, the betrayals they buried, all of it begins to rise, louder, clearer, impossible to muffle. The fear gripping them has nothing to do with love lost, or relationships broken. It is about control slipping through their fingers, about the fragile story they've built shattering under its own weight. They never anticipate you collecting fragments, piecing the truth together with quiet persistence. They assume silence will be your cage, confusion your undoing. But instead, you stand as the archive of what they've done, a living chronicle they cannot erase. Empathy never enters their calculation. There is no room for guilt where self-preservation reigns. Instead of reflection, they scramble to shield themselves from the reckoning they sense creeping closer. Their fear grows because they understand the consequences extend far beyond what they can contain, reaching into depths they refuse to acknowledge. Everything they've flung at you begins to return, doubled and unrelenting. What they sowed now circles back, echoing louder than they can withstand. What terrifies them is not your pain, but your resurgence, your voice cutting through the silence they depend on, your strength eclipsing the power they thought was theirs alone. The very illusion of victory keeps them awake, because now they understand. The battle is no longer theirs to win. They attempt to erase you because your presence contradicts every story they've crafted. Simply by existing, you unravel the fiction they work so hard to maintain. To them, you are not just inconvenient. You are the undeniable fracture in their narrative, and that is something they cannot tolerate. You carry the truth they deny, and it rattles the image they display to the world. That is why they scheme to drown your voice in noise and shadows. They isolate you, cut off support, and whisper falsehoods into ears eager to believe. Anything to reduce you to a blur in the background. Anything to make their version the only one left standing. They ridicule, diminish, and distort to convince others, and even you, that you have no story worth hearing. But what they cannot quiet is the weight of what you hold. The truth you carry is louder than every lie they scatter. Your survival is not a quiet footnote. It becomes a declaration, undeniable and fierce, that no fabrication can smother. People begin to see past their mask, to question the seams of their carefully tailored tale. The walls built to shield their deceit begin to crack because you refuse to vanish. You remain the evidence they fear most, standing in the open where they cannot hide. And in the reversal they never prepared for, your truth cuts through their silence, becoming impossible to bury. Every attempt to erase you only etches your story deeper into the world, a story too bright and too real for them to suppress. They may appear to hold sway over your circumstances, dictating decisions and shaping outcomes as though they own the ground you walk on. But their grip is shallow, rooted only in the illusion of dominance rather than the depth of legitimacy. Control can roar and intimidate, but real authority moves quietly, anchored in justice and a higher order. They confuse their reach for permission, but those two are never the same. Every sentence they pass against you comes from a stage they were never meant to stand on. They play rulers in a realm that does not belong to them, pretending they have the right to strip away dignity or dictate worth. Their so-called power is borrowed, stitched together from arrogance and deception. It carries no true weight. What they fail to recognize is that the forces that govern reality, beyond their games and titles, do not answer to their schemes. That deeper law watches patiently, unmoved by appearances, and when it moves, it exposes them for what they are, imposters in crowns they never earned. The control they flaunt begins to dissolve, and the judgments they hurl lose all meaning under scrutiny. In time, they are unseated, sometimes abruptly, their influence disassembled before all who once believed them untouchable. This reckoning doesn't merely restore balance, It makes clear that integrity, humility, and respect are the only true credentials for authority. They mistake fear for respect and command for justice, and discover too late that they were never in charge. What they cannot reach is the quiet certainty of your spirit, free and untethered to their false dominion. They imagine they can leave destruction behind and simply walk away, that the harm they've done can be scrubbed clean with a few clever excuses or silence thick enough to muffle the truth. They assume memories fade, that no one notices, that time erases the trails they leave. But reality does not work that way. Every act of malice, every hidden blow leaves something behind, not just on you, but on them, etched into the very fabric of who they become. No amount of reinvention or denial can undo it. What they try to discard clings tighter the more they run from it. That weight they thought belonged to others begins to pull at them, silently unraveling what they built. It surfaces in restless nights, in crumbling alliances, in doors that will no longer open no matter how they knock. The chaos they scatter circles back, finding them in ways they never anticipated. They think they've hidden, but consequences always remember. The pain they inflict does not vanish into air. It settles like dust on their hands, impossible to wipe away no matter how they disguise themselves. Over time, it becomes the very story of who they are, a tale written in scars and undoing. What they once hurled at you returns as the weight that confines them. What they hoped to silence becomes the voice that haunts them. And as they grasp for a way out, they find none. Because the damage they've done has shaped their own cage, and there is no clean escape.